Prisoner of the Crystal Throne, the amethyst halls of the Lumidian palace glittered under the light of 3 moons. Queen Nyxara sat motionless on her crystal throne, her violet skin luminescent against the polished obsidian floor. Her advisors stood in anxious silence as the royal guards dragged in the human prisoner. "Your Majesty," General Zevran bowed deeply. The human vessel was intercepted at the outer boundary. "This one commanded the ship." Nyxara's silver eyes narrowed as she studied the captive. Unlike the cowering humans brought before her in the past, this one stood tall despite his restraints, his gaze steady and unflinching. "Your name, human?" she asked, her melodic voice echoing through the chamber. "Captain Eli Vance of the Earth Alliance," he replied, refusing to lower his eyes. "And I'd appreciate the return of my ship and crew." Murmurs of shock rippled through the court. No one addressed the queen with such directness. Nyxara rose from her throne, her flowing silver robes cascading around her slender form as she descended the crystal steps. The court fell silent as she approached the human, circling him slowly. "Your crew has been released," she said, "but you, Captain, will remain on Lumidia." "For what purpose?" Eli asked, his voice betraying no fear. Nyxara reached out, her fingers hovering near his face without touching him. "Interesting. Your mind is different, resistant. To your telepathy?" Eli's lips curved into a slight smile. "Sorry to disappoint, Your Majesty. For generations, Lumidian queens had chosen human consorts for their malleable minds and subservience. These unions were political, a display of Lumidian superiority, never love. The current political climate demanded such a display, yet this human's mental resistance intrigued Nyxara more than she cared to admit. "You will serve as royal consort," she announced, ignoring the surprised whispers of her court. "It is an honor few humans receive." Eli laughed, the sound startling in the formal chamber. "I'm not interested in being anyone's servant, even a queen's." Nyxara felt a surge of anger, and beneath it, something unfamiliar. Fascination. "You misunderstand your situation, Captain. This is not a request. And you misunderstand humans," he countered. "Forcing someone to stay doesn't earn their loyalty." The Queen's advisor, Thelan, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, this human is unsuitable. His mind resists the bonding." "Choose another." "No," Nyxara said firmly. "He will learn our ways." Later in her private chambers, Nyxara paced restlessly. The human had been moved to the consort quarters, yet her thoughts remained fixed on his defiant gaze. For centuries, Lumidian rulers had viewed emotions as weakness, telepathic dominance as strength. But something about Eli Vance challenged those beliefs. In his quarters, Eli examined his luxurious prison. The walls were translucent crystal, the furnishings alien yet comfortable. He had no illusions about his situation. He was a political pawn in an intergalactic game. Yet the Queen's silver eyes haunted him. There had been something in them beyond cold authority, a loneliness he recognized all too well. As the smallest of Lumidia's 3 moons rose in the night sky, both queen and captive found themselves standing at their respective windows, gazing at the same stars, wondering what the coming days would bring, and why the thought of tomorrow stirred such unexpected anticipation in their hearts. Defiance and desire. The royal gardens of Lumidia stretched beneath a canopy of bioluminescent trees, their branches swaying with crystalline fruits that chimed softly in the evening breeze. Eli walked alongside Thelan, the Queen's skeptical advisor, who had been tasked with civilizing the human. "The bonding ceremony will occur in 7 rotations," Thelan explained, his thin fingers adjusting his ceremonial collar. "You will be presented to Queen Nyxara and the court. Your mind will join with hers. And if I refuse?" Eli asked, plucking one of the glowing fruits from a low-hanging branch. Thelan's expression tightened. "No consort has ever refused. The Queen's telepathic abilities are persuasive." Eli bit into the fruit, savoring its sweet tart flavor. "Yet she hasn't used them on me. Why?" "Her Majesty's reasons are her own," Thelan replied stiffly. "Now the proper way to address the Queen is—" "I know how to address royalty," Eli interrupted. "But respect is earned, not commanded." Before Thelan could respond, a ripple of awareness passed through the garden. Guards straightened, attendants bowed, and even the luminous flora seemed to pulse more brightly. Queen Nixara appeared on the garden path, her violet skin shimmering in the twilight. She had exchanged her formal robes for a simpler silver dress that caught the light with each step. "Leave us," she ordered, and Thalan retreated with obvious reluctance. Alone with Eli, Nixara studied him with those piercing silver eyes. "You're adapting to our environment. Your world is beautiful," Eli admitted. Though the hospitality could use work, a smile flickered at the edges of her mouth before she suppressed it. "Walk with me, Captain." They moved deeper into the gardens, passing pools filled with floating light orbs. Eli noticed how other Lumidians averted their gaze from the Queen, their postures submissive. None looked directly at her as he did. "Your people fear you," he observed. "They respect my position," she corrected. "Fear and respect aren't the same thing." Nixara paused beside a waterfall of liquid crystal. "You speak your mind freely. It is unfamiliar. On Earth, the best leaders surround themselves with people who tell them the truth, not what they want to hear." "And what truth would you tell me, Captain Vance?" she asked, stepping closer. Eli met her gaze. "That you're lonely. That you've never known what it's like to have someone see you as a person, not just a queen." Anger flashed in her eyes. "You presume too much? Then why bring me here? Why not just bend my mind to your will?" he challenged. Nixara's hand rose, almost touching his face before pulling back. "Perhaps I'm curious about what willing devotion might feel like." The air between them seemed to crackle with tension. For a moment, Eli thought she might kiss him or strike him. Instead, she turned away. "The bonding ceremony approaches," she said. "Prepare yourself, and if I still refuse?" She looked back, something vulnerable in her expression. "Then you would be the first." Later that night, Nixara dismissed her handmaidens and stood alone at her balcony. Below, she could see Eli in the consort gardens, his face turned up to the 3 moons. Something about him called to her, something beyond his physical appeal or his unusual mental resistance. In all her centuries of rule, no one had spoken to her as he did, as though she were simply Nixara, not the all-powerful Queen of Lumidia. The thought both terrified and thrilled her. Forbidden connection. The day before the bonding ceremony, Eli was granted access to the ancient library of Lumidia, a vast chamber where knowledge was stored not in books, but in crystal shards that transmitted information directly to the mind. He had been researching Lumidian history, searching for any precedent that might help him avoid becoming the Queen's telepathically controlled consort. "You won't find what you're looking for," came a soft voice. Eli turned to find Nixara watching him from the doorway, dressed not in her royal attire but in a simple tunic and leggings. Without her ceremonial adornments, she looked younger, almost vulnerable. "Your Majesty," he acknowledged. "Come to check on your prisoner?" She approached, examining the crystal he held. "The History of Royal Consorts," she read. "Interesting choice. Just trying to understand what I'm up against." Nixara took the crystal from his hand, their fingers brushing momentarily. A spark of connection passed between them. Not telepathic manipulation, but something far more primal. "What would it take," she asked quietly, "for you to stay willingly?" The question hung in the air between them. Eli studied her face, seeing past the regal mask to the woman beneath. "Freedom," he answered. "Not just for me, but the freedom to choose. To be your equal, not your servant." "Equality is not our way," she said, though her tone lacked conviction. "Then maybe your ways need to change." A commotion at the library entrance interrupted them. General Zevrin strode in, stopping abruptly at the sight of the Queen in her informal attire, standing too close to the human. "Your Majesty," he bowed stiffly, "the Council requests your presence. There are concerns about tomorrow's ceremony." Nixara straightened, her regal bearing returning instantly. "I will attend them shortly." After Zevrin departed, she turned back to Eli. "Come to the North Tower at midnight. There's something I want to show you." That night, Eli slipped past his guards and made his way through the palace to the North Tower. He found Nixara waiting, her violet skin almost luminous in the darkness. "Few outsiders have seen this," she said, leading him up a winding staircase to the tower's peak. They emerged onto a platform open to the night sky. Above them, the 3 moons of Lumidia aligned in a rare configuration, their combined light casting a silver-purple glow over everything. "The tri-lunar alignment," Nixara explained. "It happens once every 70 years. "It's beautiful," Eli whispered. "In our tradition, seeing this alignment with another binds your souls together," she said softly. "I've watched it alone for centuries." The admission of loneliness touched something in Eli. Hesitantly, he reached for her hand. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. "Why am I really here, Nixara?" he asked, using her name without title for the first time. She turned to face him, silver eyes reflecting moonlight. "Because you're the first person who's ever looked at me and seen more than a queen." The distance between them vanished. Her lips found his, tentative at first, then with growing hunger. The kiss was electric, awakening sensations Nixara had never experienced in her long life. Eli pulled her closer, his hands tracing the delicate contours of her back. When they finally separated, both breathless, Nixara's eyes were wide with wonder. "I've never," she began, "kissed someone who wasn't telepathically compelled." Eli finished for her. She nodded, touching her lips in amazement. "It's different." "That's what happens when both people choose it," he said gently. Under the 3 aligned moons, they talked until dawn, about Earth, about Lumidia, about themselves. For those precious hours, they were not queen and captive, but simply a woman and a man, discovering the rare joy of being truly seen by another. As the first light of morning touched the crystal spires of the palace, Nixara made her decision. "I won't go through with the ceremony," she whispered. "Not like this." What neither of them realized was that General Zevran had followed them, watching from the shadows. By morning, word of the Queen's forbidden connection with the human had begun to spread through the court, and with it, the seeds of rebellion. Rebellion of hearts. The day of the bonding ceremony arrived with an atmosphere of tension hanging over the Crystal Palace. Eli stood before a wall of reflective obsidian as attendants dressed him in traditional consort attire, flowing robes of silver and purple that felt foreign against his skin. His mind raced with thoughts of the previous night, of Nixara's promise to defy tradition. A soft chime announced a visitor. Eli turned, expecting Thelan, but instead found Kiravesh, the Queen's young handmaiden, her violet face tight with worry. "Captain Vance," she whispered, glancing nervously at the door. "The Queen sent me with a warning. General Zevran knows about your meeting last night. He's rallying the High Council against her." Eli's heart sank. "Where is she now?" "Detained in the ceremonial chambers. The Council demands she proceed with the traditional bonding, using full telepathic subjugation." Kiravesh lowered her voice further. "They say she's been compromised by emotional weakness." Before Eli could respond, the doors burst open. Royal guards flanked General Zevran, whose silver eyes glittered with cold triumph. "The human consort will come with us," he commanded. "The ceremony has been modified." Eli was escorted to the Great Hall, where hundreds of Lumidians gathered beneath a dome of prismatic crystal. At the center stood not the traditional bonding altar, but something that resembled an execution block. The whispers among the crowd confirmed his fears. This was no longer a bonding ceremony, but a public display of dominance to reassert traditional Lumidian values. Queen Nixara entered from the opposite side, her face a mask of regal indifference. Only Eli could see the storm in her eyes, the silent apology as their gazes met across the hall. "People of Lumidia," General Zevran addressed the crowd. "Today we witness not just a bonding, but a reaffirmation of our ways. Our queen will demonstrate the proper subjugation of lesser beings." Nixara ascended to her position, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "As is tradition, I will bond with this human and bend his will to mine." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Eli felt his heart sink until he caught the almost imperceptible shake of Nixara's head. She had a plan. As the ceremony began, Nixara approached Eli, placing her hands on either side of his face in the traditional bonding gesture. The touch of her cool fingers against his skin sent electricity through him. Their eyes locked, "Submit your mind," she commanded loudly for all to hear. Instead of fighting her telepathic presence, Eli did something unexpected. He welcomed it, opening his thoughts completely to her. In that moment of vulnerable connection, something extraordinary happened. Rather than Nixara dominating his mind, their consciousness flowed together in equal measure, a true merging rather than a conquest. The gasps from the telepathic members of the court confirmed that something unprecedented was occurring. Nixara's eyes widened in genuine surprise as she experienced Eli's memories, his feelings for her. His fierce belief in freedom and equality. "Impossible," General Zevran hissed, stepping forward. "Complete the subjugation, Your Majesty." Nixara slowly lowered her hands from Eli's face, their mental connection still humming between them. When she spoke, her voice rang with newfound conviction. "For generations, we have mistaken dominance for strength," she announced to the stunned court. "We have called mental slavery tradition and feared the power of true connection. Today I choose a different path, not just for myself, but for Lumidia." General Zevran's face contorted with rage. "This is treason! The Queen has been corrupted by human weakness." "No," Nixara countered, her voice steady. "I've been awakened to human strength, the strength to choose, to feel, to connect without dominance." She turned to address the court directly. "Who among you has not secretly longed for such freedom? To be valued not for your submission, but for your true self?" A murmur spread through the crowd, uncertain at first, then growing in confidence as one by one, younger Lumidians stepped forward in support. Kiravesh was the first, followed by others who had long chafed under the rigid hierarchy. Seeing his support crumbling, General Zevran made a desperate move. "The Queen is unfit to rule." He lunged toward Nixara, a ceremonial dagger gleaming in his hand. Eli moved without thinking, intercepting the general. They grappled briefly before Eli disarmed him, the dagger clattering across the crystal floor. Guards rushed forward, surrounding Zevran at Nixara's command. In the silence that followed, Nixara took Eli's hand, their fingers intertwining visibly before the entire court, a gesture of equality unthinkable before this moment. "Today marks not just a new bond," she declared, "but the beginning of a new Lumidia." Beyond two worlds, dawn broke over Lumidia 3 months later, the triple suns casting prismatic light through the newly redesigned throne room. Where once a single imposing crystal throne had stood, now 2 chairs of equal height gleamed side by side. The change was symbolic of the many transformations sweeping through Lumidian society. Nixara stood at the balcony overlooking the capital city, watching as humans and Lumidians moved freely through the streets below. The diplomatic delegation from Earth would arrive today, the first official recognition of the new alliance she and Eli had forged. "Nervous?" Eli asked, joining her at the railing. The ceremonial robes he wore matched hers in dignity if not in style, marking his unique position as neither consort nor king, but equal partner to the Queen. "Lumidians don't get nervous," she replied with a smile that belied her words. Eli laughed, taking her hand. The mental connection between them hummed pleasantly. Not the forced bond of old Lumidian tradition, but something that had grown naturally between them. A bridge rather than a chain. "The council vote was closer than I'd hoped," Nixara admitted, her expression growing serious. 11-9 in favor of the new constitution. "Change takes time," Eli reminded her. "Look how far you've come already." Indeed, the changes had been remarkable. The practice of telepathic subjugation had been officially outlawed. Interspecies relationships, once considered taboo, were now accepted, if not yet common. Most significantly, the ancient caste system that had stratified Lumidian society was being dismantled, replaced by governance based on merit rather than telepathic strength. Not everyone embraced these changes. General Zevran, though imprisoned, had become a symbol for traditionalists who viewed the new ways as heresy. Rumors of a resistance movement occasionally reached the palace, but thus far the majority seemed cautiously optimistic about Lumidia's new direction. The ceremony to welcome Earth's ambassadors proceeded smoothly in the Great Hall. Nixara spoke eloquently of new beginnings and mutual respect. When she finished, Eli addressed the assembly, his words translated simultaneously for those without telepathic abilities. "Earth and Lumidia share more than just interests," he said. We share a vision of what's possible when we recognize the dignity in all beings. Later, as the diplomatic reception continued below, Nixara led Eli to a private chamber high in the palace. There, a special communication array had been prepared. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. Eli nodded. "They deserve to know I'm safe and happy." The screen flickered to life, revealing Eli's parents on Earth, their faces registering shock, joy, and confusion at seeing their son standing beside the violet-skinned queen of a distant world. The conversation that followed was emotional, filled with explanations, assurances, and eventually, tentative acceptance. When Eli introduced Nixara as his partner, his mother simply smiled and said, "We always knew you'd find someone special, though we didn't expect to have to travel to another galaxy for the wedding." After the call ended, Eli and Nixara stood in comfortable silence, looking out at the 3 moons beginning their nightly ascent. "Wedding?" Nixara finally asked, her silver eyes questioning. "Is that something you want?" Eli turned to face her. "I want a life with you, whatever form that takes." "Lumidians don't have weddings," she said thoughtfully. "But perhaps it's time for another new tradition." Their lips met in a kiss that still felt as electric as the first. When they parted, Eli rested his forehead against hers, their mental connection flowing with images of possible futures, some challenging, all beautiful. "There will always be those who resist change," Nixara whispered, giving voice to her deepest fear. "And there will always be those brave enough to embrace it," Eli replied, "including a certain queen who once wanted a servant but found something better." "What did I find?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "A partner," he said simply. "Someone who sees beyond the queen to the woman beneath. Someone who loves both equally." As night fell completely over Lumidia, they stood together at the balcony, neither ruler nor subject, neither alien nor human, but something new, a bridge between worlds, a promise of what could be when love replaced power as the greatest force in the universe. In the city below, lights glowed in windows where humans and Lumidians gathered together. In the palace gardens, the first hybrid flowers, a cross between earth roses and Lumidian crystal blooms, opened their petals to the triple moonlight. And in the hearts of a queen and a captain, a certainty took root, that some boundaries were meant to be crossed, some traditions meant to be broken, and some souls meant to find each other across the vast expanse of stars.